The digestive system is made of 8 different organs that work together to transform what we eat into nutrients and energy that we need to stay alive.
The mouth is the first part of the digestive system. All food molecules enter through the mouth, and the teeth begin to break it into small pieces. The tongue and natural reflexes help with swallowing. The glands in the cheeks of the mouth and under the tongue produce saliva. Saliva helps the food to be swallowed because it consists of water, mucus, and hydrolytic enzyme called salivary. This starts the digestion of carbohydrates. The mouth uses mechanical digestion because it crushes, breaks, and mashes food. There's also chemical digestion involved because saliva is an enzyme and it breaks down the carbohydrates chemically.
The primary function of the esophagus is to carry food and liquid from your mouth to your stomach. Once you swallow, the first step is that the food and liquid moves from your mouth to your throat, called the pharynx. The esophagus doesn't break down any food because its function is to only transfer the food from your mouth to your throat. The esophagus produces no digestive enzymes, but it does produce some mucose for lubrication. The acidic area in the stomach stops the action of amylase enzyme. No digestion occurs in the esophagus. After passage through the esophagus, the bolus will enter the stomach and undergo mechanical and chemical digestion. Your liver is a very important part of the digestive system. It cleanses your blood, regulates your supply of body fuel, manufactures many of your essential body proteins involved in transporting blood and clotting your blood. Your liver also balances your hormones and your body's cholesterol level. The liver is one of the most important organs for making proteins. It produces or transforms millions of protein molecules each day, which are made from amino acids. The liver doesn't contain enzymes, but it does contain bile that helps break down fats, removing toxins, and breaking down and storing some vitamins and minerals. Your liver is a chemical factor in your body and works 24 hours a day. It virtually processes everything you eat, drink, breathe in, or rub on your skin.
The food enters the stomach through the lower esophageal sphincter, which is a muscle between the esophagus and the stomach that opens and closes. The main function of the stomach is to store food for around 2 to 6 hours. The stomach is very strong and has folds called rugae, which stretch to hold food. The stomach breaks down food and releases gastric juices that contain enzymes, hydrochloric acid, and mucus. Once the food is churned, it becomes an acid chyme and is pushed into the duodenum. The stomach chemically digests proteins, but it holds all types of food molecules. The enzymes in the stomach that are gastric juices are pepsinogen, which forms peptides. The stomach uses mechanical digestion because it turns and mixes the food. The food is pushed from the upper part of the stomach to the lower, and the muscles blend the food into a usable form. Chemical digestion is also involved when the stomach produces gastric juices which contains enzymes and they mix with the food. The main function of the gallbladder is to store bile. It is connected to the other parts of the system through the biliary tract that connects bile from your small intestine to your liver. When you start eating, the gallbladder receives signals to squeeze the stored bile through the biliary tract. Bile passes through the common bile duct into the duodenum at the top of the small intestine, where it mixes with food and turns fats into liquid form. The gallbladder empties the bile after a meal and will refill. The bile in the gallbladder helps the digestive system to break down fats specifically. Bile is mainly a mixture of cholesterol, bilirubin, and bile salts. The gallbladder is mechanical digestion because it aids in passing the foods through the duodenum, and the duodenum contracts against the food. It is also chemical digestion because the bile contains enzymes that break down the fats in the duodenum.
The pancreas is in the abdomen. Its function is to convert the food we consume into fuel for the body's cells. The two main functions in the pancreas are that it helps you with digestion and it helps regulate your blood sugar. The types of food molecules that break them down in the pancreas are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Through small tubes called ducts, the pancreas delivers digestive juice through to the small intestine through small tubes. Your pancreas enzymes break down sugars, fats, and starches. It also helps your digestive system by making hormones. The pancreas is chemically involved because of the gland cells in the small intestine that secrete enzymes and chemically break down multiple food molecules into simpler ones. Once the large intestine receives food from the small intestine, it means that the food has been liquefied by the digestive process and most of the nutrients have been absorbed. The colon, which is a part of the large intestine, dehydrates the leftover food and turns it into stool. In the process, it slowly absorbs all the electrolytes and water as the muscle system moves the waste along. The large intestine can break down many foods such as proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, and starches. The enzyme in the intestine that helps break down these foods are peptidases, sucrases, maltase, lactase, and intestinal lipase. The large intestine doesn't really release digestive enzymes. Instead, it includes the absorption of water and electrolytes and the elimination of feces. The large intestine is a chemical digestion because of how it's completed within the small intestine before the chyme reaches the large intestine.
The three sections of the small intestine are the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. The duodenum is the upper part of the small intestine, and it's where a majority of the digestion of carbs, proteins, and lipids happen. This is also the site where the bile duct and the pancreatic duct empty their fluids. The jejunum and the ileum absorb nutrients into the walls of the small intestine and pass the glucose and amino acids to the circulatory system and the lipids to the lymphatic systems. There is no real difference between the placement of the jejunum and the ileum in the small intestine. The lining is highly folded to form villi, which increases the surface area to help with absorption. The blood vessels in the villi form a hepatic portal vein which connects to the liver. The small intestine digests proteins, carbs, lipids, nucleic acid, as well as vitamins, minerals, salt, and water. The intestinal gland produces peptidases, maltase, and lactase. Majority of the chemical digestion in the digestive system happens all in the small intestine. The walls are lined with intestinal glands that produce enzymes within the digestive juices. Digestion of proteins of amino acids starts as soon as you start chewing. While you chew, two enzymes from the saliva, amylase and lipase, start to break down food. These smaller pieces are then passed down to the esophagus and then the stomach. In the stomach, chemicals including hydrochloric acid and proteases begin to break down the protein into amino acids. Amino acids are joined together by peptides into chains, and then they are broken by proteases. The smaller chains of amino acids are passed down into the small intestine, where the pancreas releases enzymes including trypsin and carbohydrate that further break down the amino acids. They are then absorbed into the villi. Carbohydrates are used to produce ATP energy. They are based from monosaccharides, sugars that create large carbohydrates. Glucose is the most common and is used to create starch, glycogen, and cellulose. The enzymes in the saliva, amylase and lipase, break down the carbs. The salivary glands produce hydrolytic acid that breaks starches into maltose. In the stomach, the low pH deactivates the salivary amylase so it stops digesting. The carbs are mostly broken down in the small intestine by pancreatic juices. Maltose is broken by maltase and into glucose. The glucose is absorbed into the small intestine walls and put into our bodies. Some carbs, such as fiber, will go through the large intestine. Fiber will pass through and help maintain a healthy intestine.
The nucleic acids, DNA, and RNA are found in most foods. When they are ingested, they travel down the esophagus where it is broken down into smaller particles. It continues breaking down when it enters the duodenum and is met with the pancreatic juices. The enzymes here are deoxyribonuclease, which breaks down DNA, and ribonuclease, which breaks down DNA into nucleotides. They are turned into sugar, phosphate, and nitrogen. In the small intestine, they are absorbed into capillaries and into the bloodstream. From there, they can also travel into cells in our body to replace dying cells. Lipids are large molecules not soluble in water, so they will clump together throughout the system. The enzyme lipase is used to break down the lipids. The fats start breaking down as you chew, and the salivary glands releases enzymes. The mixing of the stomach as well as the lipase helps break down the lipids. As it passes to the duodenum, the bile from the gallbladder is used to make the large fat droplets smaller. This process is called emulsification. Pancreatic juices also enter the small intestine, including lipase. By now, the lipids have become fatty acids. Micelles are structures that are created around the fat so that they can enter the body through the villi. Fatty acids are also absorbed into the bloodstream.